So best for last, Virginia Tech. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is a DPR project management problem. Virginia Tech is acting as a DPR team, presenting to a panel of DPR executives about a project called Census Diagnostics. We've asked them to go through a couple owner contracts, develop a schedule, construction schedule, do a schedule of values, general conditions. They had an MEP exercise where they dove into some air handler system components, all sorts of questions. They did a safety exercise, site logistics, and all day they got bombarded by scenarios that we threw their way. So they've been working very hard since 6 a.m. yesterday. Please give them your undivided attention. Please have your phones in either airplane mode, silent, or off. Dealer's choice. Yes. Okay. So you guys have 20 minutes to present. I'll give you the signal if you kind of hit 20 or go over 20. We need to make sure we get 10 minutes of Q&A. Okay, so with that, the floor is yours. Good luck.
Well, good afternoon, evening to all of y'all. We are here to talk a little bit about the project that we've been analyzing recently. To start us off, Curtis will lead us with a striking flag.
Yes, so if everyone just
Right arms over. Rotate a little bit. Oh yeah. All right, feel that shoulder.
That's terrible.
So now let's do splits. No, I'm just kidding.
Alright, so we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Hi, my name is Curtis.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Brian.
Johnny.
I'm Joe.
I'm John. And we're going to go into the presentation overview. First, we're going to start off with the project overview, and then we're going to dive into our go, no, go decision. And then next, we're going to go into our under needs and our core values, and we're going to integrate those into our project.
So we'd like to talk a little bit about the project risk associated with the Census Diagnostics building, the contract risk comparison, and how we selected the contract that we did, and the self-performed work category, as well as subcontractor selection a little bit.
And then we're going to get into the value engineering and how we can save some time and money on the project. And then we're going to cover the final numbers and the schedule and estimate. And then lastly, we'll go over the resident analysis. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Census Diagnostics is a 3-story steel frame building in the western part of California. It's going to include it's going to include a cafeteria. It's going to include an exercise room, offices, an IT service room, and much more. It's going to be a 70,000 square foot building, and it really is a project that DPR is looking at. It's looking very promising.
And we're really excited to get into it. And so, right off the bat, this project is a go. We're saying that we're really excited for this project. We really like all of the different aspects that it brings together. Some of the reasons why this project is a go is because of Contract A. It really reduces a lot of risk, mostly through risk sharing and the rewards that can be shared in the contract. And finally, the innovation that that Census actually encourages, especially in those scenarios that they've already given to us, they really encourage some of that innovation, which goes really well with our values.
Yeah, so first with our core values, Census is pursuing a LEED Gold certification, which we feel aligns with integrity really well. It demonstrates that they have a high standard for sustainability and care for the environment, which we feel aligns with our integrity.
And we believe Census is going to make this project very collaborative. We believe in enjoyment on the project. If we're not having fun, and it's not working right.
Additionally, with partnering up with Census, there will be a great synergy, two great parts to make a fantastic whole, resulting in a unique experience and a unique project.
The owner's push to include innovation into the project aligns with our core value of ever forward, and our push to innovate our business and construction practices to increase productivity and cost savings.
If we combine all of these things, we will be building great things. And that being said, we're going to look at some of the project risk so that we can do that.
Like Brian said, every project contains a little bit of risk. We use three main factors to distinguish the risk of this project. The first being probability of the risk if it was to occur, on a scale of 1 to 100%. A severity of impact if it was to occur, that's on a scale of 1 to 5%, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. And risk factor 1 to 5 again, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. As you can see, we pulled out a couple of risks from our risk analysis included in our binder with a couple of the major risks. Now, don't let these red colors scare you. The overall project grade was a B, approximately an average risk factor of 1, so it's pretty low. But a couple of critical risks that we'll have to address and put countermeasures to involve permitting delays and reduced fee for deductive change orders. We've mitigated some of those by either selecting the contract that was favorable of the countermeasure that we were suggesting, or in some other ways that we'll get into in a little bit. Some big ticket items to note here are the earliest detection phases of all of these major risks are in pre-con. So we can mitigate them and plan them out before we even break ground.
Going into the logistics of phases 1 through 3 and the risks associated with each, firstly, we will have the temporary utilities connecting the existing facilities to our temporary office and the facilities on site. And secondly, we'll have the public easement on the western side of the site, where we will be installing a grade beam and a sidewalk, as well as a site fence and a silt fence. Third, we'll have silt runoff as our third risk, and we'll mitigate this risk by installing coming up with an effective logistics plan and installing silt fencing. Moving on to a number of our logistics items, we have restrooms, dumpsters, recyclable waste for our lead items, and our construction entrance and exit. Moving on to 4 through 6, a number of the risks we have here. A specific one we have, one of the major ones we have is our crane logistics. We have a large crane pit right in the middle of the site at 71,000 pounds for an air handling unit. So we'll have to work with the MEP coordinator to come up with a crane path on site to reduce traffic. Second, we'll have site crowding, which can also be linked to crane logistics. We have created an effective logistics plan to mitigate this risk. Thirdly, we have surrounding structures and an active campus that we need to protect, and we'll be using site fencing and secure exits and entrances on site.
So now that John's given a little bit of an overview about the logistics itself, we'd like to dive into some other concerns and some MEP constructability concerns our team found yesterday. The first being the water filtration. When we had our meeting with the client yesterday afternoon, they pointed out that they were concerned about not like pure water being in the 4-pipe system that leads up to the air handlers on the roof. We did find one side stream water filter in an adjacent building of the chilled water lines that we will be tying into, but we don't feel that this is going to be sufficient for the owner due to calcium buildups in the area. So we'd like to value engineer in a few more water filters when we submit our mechanical scope.
Another element that we talked about yesterday with the owner was the large air handling unit on site. It's about 71,000 pounds and it services all the general office space. Another element that we didn't talk about as much is the second air handling unit, which is solely for the IT server room on the first floor. These systems are very important as they serve very important things, both the comfort of people in the building as well as the servers that keep all the information. With these intricate systems, we need to make sure that we have good systems in place to construct them, as well as having good backup plans. In the specs, we have good backup plans in regards to AHU1 serving as a backup supply for air to the IT server room, as well as if there's a power outage, there is backup power coming from an adjacent building to keep those servers safe. And basically, the integration of all these elements is really important for the MEP. And then next, again, back to the IT server room, it's crucial that these servers stay safe, stay cool, and what comes with that is the hot aisle return. As you can see, we have an idea of where it is, what it is, but there aren't many details, and this product could be unique to the importance of the IT servers, so we want to just get more contractual details and plan in order to further know what the constructability of contracts entail.
Like you said, there's not just project risk on this project, there's some contractual language that we need to take into account. We were looking at both contract A and contract B. Contract A, first and foremost, is a consensus doc 300 document, and it's structured very similar to an IPD format for a contract, where it's a multi-party agreement with the owner, the designer, and the contractor all together in one contract. This actually allocates and shares risks and reward across those three parties. On the other side, contract B is AIA 133, and during the construction phase, it's more adversarial between the contractor and the owner.
Another contract comparison that we looked at and were concerned about when comparing these two contracts was expedited schedule rates. So in contract A, they state that costs are reimbursable, such as overhead when the owner decides to expedite the schedule. But in contract B, there is no overtime pay if the contractor or if the owner was to decide to expedite the schedule at their discretion.
Another difference between the contracts is in errors and omissions. Contract A says DPR is not responsible for catching all errors and omissions in the contract documents or any conflicts in the contract documents. However, contract B is less clear, and we're partially responsible for those if we do not provide the architect with those mistakes before the construction begins.
And additionally, another contract comparison we did is when the certificate of occupancy had to be issued. For contract A, that was final completion. However, in contract B, that was substantial completion. This is a concern because now the owner can move occupants in, and we will be having to work around them while tying up loose ends. They can also retain payment until final completion with their certificate of occupancy due at substantial completion.
Like we said at the very beginning, contract A is the contract that we're going with. It's a lot better for DPR's risk and the level of risk that we take on in this project. As you can see, assigned scores of low to high for each of the risk categories. And for contract A, all of the categories except for one were low. This is because of that risk sharing. In contract A, we were actually able to pick between two risk allocations. One, a safe harbor risk allocation that allows that risk sharing, and then one more traditional, more similar to contract B. Of course, if we went with this project and we were going to pick contract A, we would pick the safe harbor allocation of risk. Another benefit of contract A is the owner is responsible for providing proof of financing if we request it, which would lead us to be able to request this financing and know that Census would be able to pay us throughout the project.
We found that the schedule provides a clear and fair order of proceedings. This is going to allow us to get through this, the contracts very easily. Along with that, contingency, we're able to use the contingency at any point in the project without the owner's approval. And after that, we do have the right to stop construction at any point in the construction project, in the construction process, even if or if the owner doesn't make payments.
And additionally, the owner indemnifies DPR for existing hazards, meaning that we are not held liable if what they find is incorrect. There's also a deductive fee associated with change order deletions, but it's only after 10% of the scope has been deleted. This eliminates a lot of the risk, unlike contract B, which just has a deductive fee if any of the scope is deleted. There's also a waiver of subrogation in the contract language under the property insurance clauses. So this is important because it protects DPR in the event something could go wrong.
So that's enough about the contracts. Let's get into the subcontractors. First off, the exterior glazing. We chose to go with the glazing guys. We chose them because they were the highest cost, but they did have the most inclusions associated with their scope. And they also had a lot of coordination with the subs and us as the GC. So that'll be very beneficial to everyone to help make sure the job runs smoothly. And then next, we chose for HV, AC, and plumbing, we chose the Italian brothers. We chose them because of their critical inclusions that they had, such as cold water tying to the existing building. And they were also the lowest cost subcontractor for HVAC and plumbing. And finally, for the food services, we chose Kitchen by Foreman. We chose to use them because they did include startup of all their equipment, and they also had included the longest warranties for all their products, which would help benefit if anything went wrong or is damaged.
Next, since DPR is builders at core, we wanted to self-perform the work of the drywall. We felt that this was critical for the interior works and really pushing the schedule so we can get those finishes done quickly. Next, it saves us money if we don't have to have an additional subcontractor fee due to the fact that we're self-performing the work. Next, since we have the same core values as DPR drywall, we will have we'll have a higher quality assurance with what they do. And finally, again, back to our connections with them, they have the same safety program, which is critical when mitigating that risk.
So some value engineering proposals that we have thought of. First off, being reuse of asphalt. At the beginning of the project, there is some demolition of existing pavement. So if we could store that and use it later on in the project when we do have to pave, it would help save costs and it'll help with the BEAD requirements of reuse of materials. The next value engineering proposal was using Conex Tech for all our steel erection and fabrication. They're a steel and fabricator and erector, and basically they put up the columns and they have these collars that go on the columns and all the girders just attach in. And so that'll help accelerate the schedule by about 3 weeks that we estimated. And then finally, precast floor panels. We would have all of our concrete floors precast into different sections, and then we would use just-in-time delivery to bring them to site so we don't take up material storage. And then we would have them picked directly off the truck and drop into place. And we believe that with this just-in-time delivery, we can help accelerate the schedule.
Yeah, so with that, let's just go ahead and jump right into the schedule. The notice to proceed for the pre-construction is August 5th, 2019. That's going to consist of the bid packages, submittals, and procurement of materials.
Another contract-related thing, contract A allows for a good definition of excusable and compensable delays compared to contract B, and in the schedule that would be very beneficial for us to effectively schedule the project.
We're kind of going more in depth into our phases. We're going to start off with the mobilization, make ready, and then we can get into our substructure and superstructure, which is going to consist of the steel framing. And then we can go into the framing and roughings. And then move into our MEP applications on the inside of the building. And then we will get into our finishes, testing and commissioning, fire life safety, and then parking structure and landscaping. And we'll finish up with our post-construction demobilization and cleanup.
Joe said earlier that the certificate of occupancy is another key distinction between contract A and contract B, and this is where it will come into play at the end, where contract A does not require a certificate of occupancy for substantial completion, meaning that we will be a little year and will give us a little bit more liquidity.
And it is absolutely vital that we stay on our critical path because we don't want to take on any liquidated damages. According to contract A, 1 day of liquidated damages is going to cost us $7,000. So in order to avoid that, we're going to utilize full planning and milestones in the schedule. The entirety of the project will be 448 working days, which is about 630 calendar days.
So now we'll get into the numbers. The total job we estimate to cost about $36.3 million. The majority of that is going to be the actual construction costs of the job.
The contingency is about 4%, with design contingency being 2%, construction contingency being another 2%. This is going back to that contract A language where contingency can be utilized without prior owner approval. This is good. It keeps the schedule and allows us to use the contingency as we see fit.
The general conditions will be about $2 million, and the fee will be about at about 3.5%. And our contractors' insurance and bonds will be about $2 million.
Another thing about contract A is that labor is allowed to be included in allowances, but this is really only implied in the contract. Allowances must be submitted with a statement of basis, and with that statement of basis, we can argue for labor to be included into the allowance.
So now that we've shown this project is feasible, we can build it. We have the subcontractors, the SPW guys to do so. We'd like to talk about the critical factors associated with our red zone. One being passion. Census has already shown that they're a passionate client. They're willing to come to us with concerns and their owner needs and wants. So that's going to help us have a much smoother coordination process going into this project. Another thing is the performance of the project. Does it fall into our core market sectors? Well, yes, it falls into a couple, such as office space and advanced technologies with the IT server room. This is important because it's going to allow some team collaboration that you don't typically see on a lot of projects across the board with market sectors, which is a pretty unique aspect. And thirdly, economic return. As was stated earlier, it's a 3.5% for our fee. This will be a substantial return for this project because the risk is so low, and it will boost DPR constructions as a whole annual return. So now that we've gone over the project, we've determined it is a go. We'd like your questions and concerns about this project. Thank you for your time.